Today's lesson is Aurora's Magic in the Skies. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike.
And I'm Roger.
And today we are going to be beginning a 2-day article all about that wondrous light show in the skies that you can only see, well, you can best see, I guess it would be more accurate to say, at the very north and the southern tips of our world. So you need to be prepared to be cold, but if you do actually make it all the way up there with your extra thick jackets and sweaters, you will be treated to a spectacular interstellar light show, the likes of which it is very hard to witness anywhere else on Earth. We're, of course, talking about the auroras, or the northern lights, or the southern lights, to know them by their more common names.
Exactly, and of course, Mike, you're from the great white north of Canada, so you certainly must have seen them while you were growing up.
I actually did, yes. I've seen them in the winter. I've even seen them in the summertime, which I remember being with a bunch of friends outside of the city where there was less light pollution. Of course, city lights can get in the way, so if you're out in the countryside, but I remember even it must have been July or August, and we were all amazed to see the northern lights so far south in the summertime. Quite unusual, but yes, in the wintertime, if you do go up north, even just a little bit outside of the cities, depending on what the weather on the sun is doing, and yeah, that's one of the big factors in the northern lights, you can actually see them during many times of the year.
So let's begin our lesson by listening to the first paragraph, and we'll introduce this topic to you.
Auroras, magic in the skies. Have you ever seen colorful lights dancing in the night sky? This beautiful phenomenon is called an aurora. Like nature's very own fireworks, auroras fill the heavens with green, blue, red, pink, and purple streaks, and people the world over dream of witnessing them with their own eyes.
大家好，第一部分介绍名词 phenomenon， 指现象，也可以是非凡的人事物。例如 The Northern Lights are a strange and beautiful natural phenomenon. 北极光是奇特又美丽的自然现象。或者 I saw an unusual phenomenon in the sky. 我看到天空中有异常现象。下一个看到动词 witness， 表示目睹、目击或是见证。例如I need to call the police. I think I witnessed a crime. 我需要打电话报警。我想我目睹了一起犯罪。或是 Betty was pleased that she had lived long enough to witness the birth of her grandchild. Betty 很高兴她活得够久，得以目睹孙子出生。
Okay, so we begin by asking a question here. Have you ever seen colorful lights dancing in the night sky? No, I haven't, unless somebody was shining spotlights on clouds or something like that. You might see something like that in the city. If we're also referring to fireworks, maybe for New Year's Eve, I've certainly seen colorful lights dancing in the night sky, but I don't think that's what they're referring to here.
No, probably not a drone display. It's highly unlikely it's an ET or a UFO landing, although that would be quite special and very memorable. No, what we're talking about is this beautiful phenomenon, I should say, is called an aurora. Yeah, that would be the scientific term for it, an aurora, and it is truly a beautiful phenomenon. And a phenomenon is something, well, in this case, they often happen in nature. It's something kind of unusual, kind of special. It's a fact or a situation that people see, they witness, it actually happens, and it does have a feeling when we use this word phenomenon of being unusual, out of the ordinary, unexpected. Things like rainbows, that's a pretty common phenomenon to see after a rainstorm, but actually catching one, with your camera or being out in the city and seeing it is still kind of unusual, kind of special. So things like this, things that are kind of strange but do happen in nature, we do have explanations for them. It's not sort of a mystery or anything like that, but it is special. It is kind of out of the ordinary. It is definitely an interesting phenomenon.
Right. Remember, phenomenon is singular. If you talk about those different things that happen, you use phenomenon, like a tornado is a natural phenomenon. But phenomena is the plural, so I could say earthquakes and rainbows and hurricanes and typhoons are all examples of natural phenomena. So this particular phenomenon is called an aurora, although we don't really use that word that often. We usually just say the northern lights or the southern lights. And like nature's very own fireworks, auroras fill the heavens with green, blue, red, pink, and purple streaks. And people the world over dream of witnessing them with their own eyes. Now, is that true, Mike? When you saw the northern lights, did they have all these different colors?
I do believe I remember seeing, yes, red, pink, purple. I'm not so sure about the green. And they were definitely streaks. I think some people also describe it as sort of like when you see a puddle with oil in it, right? And the oil kind of shimmers with those rainbow colors. Maybe if you see, oil in a puddle by the side of the road. And also light shows, right? People do often compare it to fireworks and things like that. But in this case, they're describing these streaks of light that you might see. A streak is kind of like a line of light. If a car drives by late at night with the lights on, there might be a streak of light sort of created by the speed of the car and those lights shining brightly. Often speed is sort of illustrated by drawing streaks of something. If you're drawing a picture of a person running fast, you might draw streaks. And in another way, you can talk about stripes of color as well, being streaks or something like that. So just sort of bands of light, narrow, thin bands of light kind of dancing around. And it says, and people the world over dream of witnessing them with their own eyes. Yes, of course, you can know about the auroras, you can learn about them, read about them, maybe even see them on a television nature show. But to witness them is actually to be there in person, to see it, as it says, with your own eyes, to go all that way to those northern places, and to be lucky enough on certain nights with the weather and everything that's going on with the sun, to actually see them, to be there present when something is happening, to be a witness or to witness this amazing phenomenon.
Right, and this happens all over the world, so the world over just means all over the world. Indeed, lots of people would like to do this during their life at some time. Okay, we're at the end of the first paragraph for today. Let's move on now to the second part. We'll listen first.
Auroras primarily occur at latitudes above 60 degrees in the north and below 60 degrees in the south. They are caused by charged particles from the sun hitting the Earth's magnetic field. Which colors we see depends on which gases the particles interact with in the atmosphere. The lights can be faint and slow-moving, or they can be very bright and move quickly across the sky in big swirling shapes.
第二部分介绍名词 latitude 指的是纬度。举例来说 Many people who live at northern latitudes are found to be lacking vitamin D during the winter. 许多生活在北纬地区的人被发现在冬天缺乏维生素 D。 或是 With latitude and longitude lines on a map, any point can be located. 透过地图上的经纬线，任何地点都可以被定位。后面看到名词 particle，它的意思是微粒或是粒子。例如 I received a research grant to study the behavior of particles. 我拿到一笔研究补助金，是做粒子行为相关的研究。再来介绍形容词 magnetic， 表示带磁性的或是磁力作用的。可以说 A magnetic screwdriver will stop screws from falling onto the floor. 有磁性的螺丝起子可避免螺丝掉到地上。又或者说Iron is magnetic, but gold is not. 铁是有磁性的，但是黄金没有。继续看到名词 atmosphere， 它的意思是大气层，也可以是气氛或是氛围。例如 That planet's atmosphere seemed to be very similar to Earth's. 那颗行星的大气层似乎跟地球的很类似。再看一个例子 Last night's party had a lively atmosphere with lots of music and dancing. 昨晚的派对有很多音乐和舞蹈，气氛热烈。
Okay, so if you want to see the auroras, or the northern lights or the southern lights, where do you go? Well, they primarily occur at latitudes above 60 degrees in the north and below 60 degrees in the south. Okay, so if you're measuring certain locations on the earth, if you want to talk about how far north you are or how far south you are, we use the term latitude. And 60 degrees latitude is in Canada somewhere, at least if we're talking about North America. I think the border between the United States and Canada is the 49th parallel. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. 60 would be about 2/3 of the way, of course, from the equator all the way up to the North Pole. That would be 90 degrees. So from the equator, the middle of the Earth, right up to either the North or South Pole, that would be either 90 degrees north or south. So you're right, 60 degrees, about 2/3 of the way up towards the North Pole. Pretty far north. I imagine the Arctic Circle is probably around 60 or 66 degrees or something like that. So we're in, yes, definitely the northern regions of the world. And this, of course, is measured by latitude. Latitude, of course, are those lines on a map. If you ever looked at a map or a globe, one of those round ball-like representations of the Earth, like you might have used in school, latitude would be the lines going from east to west, sort of the bands around the middle of the Earth. The zero latitude would be what we call the equator. That's basically the midpoint of the world that goes around some of the warmest parts of the world, and as you go up or down, you're going north or south. The other lines, the lines that stretch from the North Pole to the South Pole, the lines that we measure time zones and whatnot with, that would be longitude. Okay, so those are the longitude lines, and latitude lines are the ones that measure north to south. So you're about 60 degrees in the north and below 60 degrees in the south. Those are the best latitudes, or the points on the map going north or south, where it would be better or easier to witness the auroras from.
Right, so there you have your location. If you want to see them, head to such locations. Get out your globe and figure out where to go. And they are caused by charged particles from the sun hitting the Earth's magnetic field. So we've got charged particles, which means they got a plus, they're positive, and a particle is just a small piece of matter. It could be the electron or the proton or the neutron from an atom. It could be a small piece of dust. Those are all particles, and these are charged particles in the atmosphere, and they hit the Earth's magnetic field, which is generated by the core, I believe. As the core of the Earth spins around, it generates a big magnetic field, sort of like a giant magnet in the sky.
Exactly right. Magnetic, of course, being related to the properties of iron and magnetism. This is why when we use compasses, the needle will point to the north and the south, that kind of idea. So yes, you're right. The world is basically a giant magnet. We can see these magnetic fields using special cameras and other sensitive instruments. And so once these particles from the sun travel all the way from the sun along with light and other things, and they hit or sort of bounce off Earth's magnetic field, it can cause these amazing light shows. It says which colors we see, going back to our menu there, our list of red, blue, pink, green, those types of things. So which colors we see depend on which gases the particles interact with in the atmosphere. So it's all very random. You can't really predict, oh, tonight we'll see blues and greens, tomorrow we'll see reds and pinks. It all depends on which gases in the Earth's atmosphere the particles interact with. Of course, our atmosphere is made up of oxygen and nitrogen, some more inert gases like neon and things like that. But basically, they're interacting with our atmosphere. The atmosphere being that mix of gases that creates sort of a bubble of air and life around the planet. The reason we have weather, the reason our planet is not too hot or too cold, and the reason we have air to breathe, it's all because of the atmosphere, this bubble of gas that surrounds the Earth and protects us from the from the sun's rays, I should say, and also keeps us here on Earth able to breathe because of this atmosphere that we have.
Right, so it depends on the gases in the atmosphere that the particles are hitting at the time. It could be nitrogen or oxygen or argon or whatever. Of course, as you know, there are various gases in the atmosphere. And again, that is the area of air that encircles the Earth. That's the atmosphere. It could also refer to the general feeling of a different kind of situation. There was a lively and festive atmosphere at the party, we could say. But in this particular case, we're talking about all the air that surrounds the Earth. That is the atmosphere. Now, the lights can be faint and slow-moving, or they can be very bright and move quickly across the sky in big, swirling shapes. And I suppose the best way to see this in action would be to try to find videos on YouTube to see exactly what they're doing. I think a lot of those videos are time-lapse pictures because they do move kind of slowly. They could be faint. They're not very bright. They're kind of hard to notice, and they move slowly. Or they could be very bright, easily seen, and they can move quickly across the sky. And then we've got these big swirling shapes. If something's swirling, well, think about that painting by Van Gogh, Starry, Starry Night, when things are spinning around. That's kind of swirling, and they are just kind of spinning in circles.
Exactly. Water in a whirlpool or water going down the plug. When you take the plug out of your bath or something, that water will swirl. It will kind of twist and turn around itself in the same way that a typhoon or a tornado swirls, has swirling winds as well. All right, let's pause here, and then we'll be back after we hear the third part of the article. If you want to see an aurora yourself, there are a few things to keep in mind. The best time to see them in the north is from September to March, when the nights are long. It's also important to find somewhere with a clear, dark sky, which means getting away from urban areas. Finally, be patient and bundle up, since you may have to wait a while for the lights to appear.
第三部分看到片语 keep 或是 bear something in mind， 表示记住或是牢记点点点。例如 I hope you'll keep in mind what I told you。 我希望你会把我告诉你的话放在心上。也可以说 Please bear in mind that we have a limited budget for this project。 请记住这个企划我们的预算有限。最后再看一个片语 bundle up， 表示穿得暖和。可以说You need to bundle up when going to the mountains in winter。 你在冬天去山里的时候，要穿得暖和一点。最后一个例子 With the snow falling outside, Alex bundled up against the cold and lit a fire。 外面下着雪， Alex 裹得厚实来抵挡寒冷，并生起了火。
Okay, we've been talking about the northern lights and the southern lights, and maybe you're interested in seeing them yourself. You probably can't see them here in Taiwan. You're going to have to go someplace closer to the poles. So if you want to see an aurora yourself, there are a few things to keep in mind. So yes, if you want to do this, you need to remember some things. To keep something in mind just means to remember something and not forget about it, and use it when you make decisions in the future.
Right, so here's the important information. Listen up or write this down. The best time to see them in the north is from September to March. So there you go. The winter months, basically, fall through winter, through spring. When the nights are long, absolutely, you'll have a lot more darkness, so it will definitely improve your chances of seeing the northern lights. It says it's also important to find somewhere with a clear, dark sky, which means getting away from urban areas. Yes, you might be able to witness them and see a few of those swirling lights if you're in a park in the city or something like that. Obviously not if you're standing outside a brightly lit movie theater or something. But if you definitely want to get the full effect, you would want to drive outside of the city. I would say at least 30 minutes to an hour away from the city. Maybe find yourself a nice hill in a forested area or something like that. That would definitely improve your chances of seeing them with their full splendor, with their full magnificence. Finally, it says, be patient and bundle up. Good tip, since you may have to wait a while for the lights to appear. Exactly. This is not a movie show. This is not on a schedule. They don't begin at 12 o'clock p.m. every night from September through March or something like that. So you need to be patient, be prepared to wait, maybe even be prepared to be disappointed. And also be sure you have nice weather with no clouds in the sky. And since it is September to March in more northern parts of the world, also the colder parts of the world, be sure to bundle up. When we say bundle up, that's just another way of saying dress warmly. So make sure you have extra sweaters, thick socks, maybe bring a thermos of hot chocolate with you or something like that, a scarf. Make sure you're prepared for cold temperatures, since you may be outside in the cold for quite a while in the middle of the night. But if you do actually see the northern lights, if they do decide to show up that night, it will all be worth it.
Indeed, and of course you have to take your chances. They're probably not coming out every night. I think there are probably websites that can tell you where they might likely occur. Yeah. They might actually measure, say, activity from the sun so that they can predict if these things are going to happen. Because I think for most people, especially for people in Taiwan, it's going to cost a lot of time and money to actually travel up north or south to go see these things. So it's best to know exactly when they're most likely to happen. But again, remember, if you go to these places, it's going to be pretty cold, so you need to bundle up. Although, Mike, you did say you saw them in the summer, so I guess you were probably wearing shorts and a t-shirt then.
I was indeed.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's listen to Hanny now.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny， 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始问读者 Have you ever seen colorful lights dancing in the night sky? 你曾经见过夜空中舞动的彩色光线吗？句子里面的 see 是感官动词，是指看到、看见。我们来整理一下相关的用法。感官动词是指看、听、闻、感觉之类的动词，像是 see, watch, look at, notice,Listen to, hear, smell, feel 等等，用来表达透过感官所观察到的周遭人事物。那用法会是感官动词加受词加受词补语，而这个受词补语可以是原形动词、现在分词 VING 或是过去分词 PP。可是这三种的用法意义不同。首先我们来看第一种，感官动词加受词加原形动词，这是表达观察到事实或过程。例如 I didn't notice anyone leave this room. 我没注意到有任何人离开这个房间。第二个用法，感官动词加受词加现在分词 VING， 这是表达观察到动作正在进行。就像课文里的用法，它是在受词 colorful lights 后面接了现在分词 dancing。 好，那我们也造个例句。They heard someone talking downstairs. 他们听到楼下有人正在讲话。第三个用法，感官动词加受词加过去分词 PP， 这是表达受词的被动状态。例如 We saw a car stuck in the mud. 我们看见一辆车卡在泥泞里了。我们看到课文第二部分，有一句他写到说 Which colors we see depends on which gases the particles interact with in the atmosphere. 我们看到哪种颜色取决于这些粒子与大气中的哪些气体相互作用。那这边要介绍的是 WH 疑问词引导名词子句的用法。WH 疑问词像 what、who、when、which 或是 how 等等，可以用来引导名词子句在句中当主词、受词或是主词补语。像课文里面的 which colors we see是当主词 which gases the particles interact with in the atmosphere 这部分则是当受词用。好，那特别注意，我们用名词子句当主词的时候必须视为单数，后面要搭配单数动词。所以看到课文 which colors we see 后面搭配的 depend on 它是用单数型 depends on。 好，那我们也来造两个例句。第一个例句 Why she left remains a mystery， 她为何离开仍然是个谜。例句里面的名词子句 Why she left 是当主词，要视为单数，那我们后面搭配的是单数动词 remains。 第二个例句是 This is exactly how I feel， 这正是我的感受。例句里面的名词子句 How I feel 是摆在 be 动词的后面当主词补语，用来补充说明主词，让语义完整。好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Phenomenon.A rainbow is a beautiful natural phenomenon that shows up in the sky. Streak. There was a streak of mud on the sidewalk after the storm. Witness. Corinne witnessed the accident and called the police immediately. Particle. Scientists study how each particle in an atom interacts with others. Magnetic. Wendell used a magnetic board to organize his notes for the report. Atmosphere.The presence of certain gases in the atmosphere contributes to global warming.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.